parent practitioner myself, the fact that not every, like you said, not every parent knows how to parent. But apart from that, even when you come from a different background, sometimes you don't even know how to ask the questions. You're not even confident in yourself.
And because the society has created that environment where, you know what, okay, you had a baby. We'll pay for this. We'll pay for that. We'll look after this for you. You really
We'll
don't.
get your house in.
We'll give you all things that you need to be able to do what you want to do as a single mother.
So I think that the emphasis on rebuilding community is very key in a healthy way. And community not in a superficial sense, because I heard you say in terms of hiding secret, but there's a reason why people are hiding secret.
Yes.
Because times when they have opened up to community, it's then being gossiped or weaponized, and it's spread around, whether it's the church or whether it's the community, it's being spread around.
Even so then immigration, there's so many things.
Human beings. I know with my children, they come, oh, mummy, I'm just like, listen, give me a break. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm a human being as well.
And sometimes
you can't draw down on me all the time, but I'm just saying that being present, knowing that child.
Hello, welcome to Margaret Taribo's podcast. This is a place, a safe space, I'd like to say, but we make it a place where we can talk about our stories in a vulnerable way, but a more impactful way. Today, I want to go straight to the point with my wonderful contributors here today, looking at a topic that touches me deeply. And I want to use this opportunity to, sympathize with anybody, any parent out there that might have lost a child to gang crime, to knife crime, to accidents out there that have been, have caused a lot of pain. But we feel at this juncture that we need to talk about this issue because it's becoming, so real, but we don't talk enough about it. So I want to talk about the issue of grooming in our communities, particularly for us that come from the Black, African and Afro-Caribbean communities, want to be as real as we can. So today, welcome once again to Eliyo, to Stephen and to Pelumi. We want to look at the topic of grooming. Some weeks ago, I don't know as many of us that might have heard about a young 14-year-old boy that was stabbed on the bus in Woolwich. Now, it's not the fact that he was killed. It was what led up to that when through the interview with his mom about her cry for help and the fact that this child was groomed from the age of 6. Now that actually shocked me. 6. Can you actually think about that age? What were you doing at that age? How were you feeling at that age? We have children now. What do we think about at age of 6? So it'd be nice to hear from you about, she cried out that this boy, that she cried for help. They needed help, but they did. But what does that project to you as a parent or as a worker in the community?
You see, we have to be very careful not to be judgmental. So I don't want what I'm saying to sound like judgment. It would be very interesting to know the places and spaces that poor baby was in or where they were at the age of 6. But when I look back to my child, for example, I was very observant of the people around them. I would ask, and I knew the questions to ask based on my previous experience of being bullied. I knew the kind of questions to ask. But I would say that aside from the fact that there is definitely, without a doubt, some onus on the parent to be engaging with the child, or to be taught how to engage with the child, because I always share that sometimes the way we parent is the way we were parented. So we don't always know how to. But the system that we call the education system, where the child would have been in, the police systems, all the systems that a child will be engaged with once they start going into school, they failed. They weren't listening. And in the main, they don't listen because they feel, I mean, let me say this. The school as an educating body, I would say in fairness, is doing a lot more than it's actually able to do. They're the doctors, the counselors, the everything, the food bank, the everything for families these days. However, I do believe from my heart that it's incumbent on authorities that when a parent is coming to share with you certain concerns, that in and of an everyday, especially if it's a 6-year-old, that it's not normality, if you want to use that word or phrase, then you should be alert. You should be aware. You should be conscious to make inquiries. You know, a lot of the children that your child goes to school with come from different backgrounds, and you can start seeing the way your child behaves and the differences in their attitude by the things that they say, if you're actually paying attention to what they say.
I'm going to stop you there just briefly because I need to hear from Stephen because one of the things I'd like to come up as a parent practitioner myself, the fact that not every, like you said, not every parent knows how to parent. But apart from that, even when you come from a different background, sometimes you don't even know how to ask the questions. You're not even confident in yourself. Even the way you're going to go to the school to ask that. Many people are not going to even ask the questions anyway. And before we came on air, we did have that discussion about my secret is my secret.
Yes.
That's a big one. But let's hear something. Yeah, Stephen, what's your take on this?
I think it's really tragic that a 6-year-old can be groomed under everybody's gaze and attention not given to what is going on. As a parent, I do really reflect on, and this is my ownership right now, where and what were the parents doing? And yes, we've, like I said, before we came on air, we're having the discussion about the parents' role or lack thereof in what was going on in the moment of their children. And it just points to me that thinking about where were they, what was going on for their child, that these differences were going on at 6, that we didn't notice that something was going on, that their child was behaving in a different way. Is it that we're too occupied? Yeah, we are too occupied out here making the almighty P, right? That we are now substituting our presence with the present, which is the pound. And that is proven to be a big, big, big problem within our communities because we've all come over here and we're all looking to make a better life, in quotes.
In quotes.
But at what cost when we have children? And the cost is what we're now seeing, that our children are going out there and doing things that we could not imagine, that we did not foresee coming. But the thing still points to the fact that if we are paying attention to our children and not just paying attention to making the money, supposedly, because you know how we would say, I'm doing this all for you.
I'm doing it for you. I'm your yes.
The reality
it's not the reality of the situation.
You know, because if you're doing it for me, you pay attention to what's going on
with me.
And again, like you said, you've already spoken about going to the schools. And a lot of parents won't go to the schools because there's an inferiority complex.
Yes.
And that inferiority complex is a blockage. I remember when one of my girls had a problem with one of her schools, and I remember distinctly, I think I've said this, but it's so potent in my mind that when you go to the schools and they rubbish you, and when they rubbish you, you don't know where to turn. And I think it's important right now that we begin to note that we are a voice in the lives of our children, to make the adjustments, to seek the help with the work that you guys are doing, to go out, ask the questions within your communities. There is help out there.
There is help. I agree with you, because I think, I don't want anybody to know my story. I don't want them to go and be gossiping about me. Look, if we're trying to prevent something
Absolutely.
from happening. We live in a system whereby we react a lot. The thing has happened and then we now react. But why don't we learn now? Some people will tell you that they're wasting time coming on the course on parenting. Oh, instead of you to be, I've heard it so many times on my programs. Come for a parent and say, you're wasting time. Is that going to bring you the money? But the people are not looking at the future. So I hear what you're saying. Dr. Pelumi, what's your,
Firstly, even as this conversation is happening, I'm just like, I don't even know how or where to start in terms of speaking on this, because it's so nuanced. It's heartbreaking. It's things that, even growing up, so I grew up in Hackney, and there's a particular street that a lot of us, when going to school, will pass, and it was dubbed Murder Mile growing up. And seeing that come up in the news, there was a lot of work done in the community to stop knife crime and reduce things like that. And for a 14-year-old to be stabbed on a bus, and again, we don't know the ins and out of the story, but even from what has been brought up in terms of the lack of community, and also the structure of things here in the UK, that the reality is people are focused on work a lot more to pay bills, to pay rent, to all of these things. And then the trickle effect is on children, because children will observe what's happening in the household, right? They'll observe parents stressed over money, stress over...
And they're going to say they want to help mom.
Yes, exactly. That's what I was getting to, helping mom and dad. And that's an easy in terms of these grooming gangs.
Yes.
Sometimes even as simple as just wanting food in the belly. Sometimes there's even a thing of feeling a sense of power in a system that makes you feel powerless. And also going back to that lack of community, a lot of gangs, a lot of these groups, you feel a sense of family.
Yes.
You feel a sense of family. You feel a sense of you are heard, you are understood. They get where I'm coming from. We have common interests, common motivations.
Especially where you come from a home whereby mom is always shouting all the time.
Or someone's not listening to you, or even when children try to open up about different struggles, and parents may be like, what are you struggling? I've got this on my mind, that on my mind. It's an easy in for these gangs. So I think that the emphasis on rebuilding community is very key in a healthy way, and community not in a superficial sense, because I heard you say in terms of hiding secret, but there's a reason why people are hiding secret. Because times when they have opened up to community, it's then being gossiped or weaponized, and it's spread around, whether it's the church or whether it's the community, it's being spread around.
Even so then immigration, there's so many things.
Also to protect their children, because again, it can be weaponized against the children as well. So I think it's that whole thing of community, not just in name, but actually what is the role of the community in this? And we've had conversations over the years. I think we've spoken on this topic so many times on different platforms, but what are we actually doing? What is the deep work being done that is continuous?
I think for me, the deep work is that preventive elements, which we're not getting. And I don't even think the system is getting it as well, because of, the fact that even to get funding or to get a grant in terms of that it's the outcomes that are being measured. It's the outcomes that people want to see, even if they're supporting you. But when you look at the fact that I want to prevent this, but it's a slowly trusting element that needs to be built up.
So what are those preventative measures?
So preventive, like having conversations, coming on courses. That's why when we do things in our community, in our programs, we call it soft outreach. We're doing events whereby we're building a community.
Okay.
Where you can come to an event, you start knowing
see
people,
the familiar faces.
you see familiar faces, and then you start opening up and you start talking. That is what people are not getting. That's why we try to say, don't say it's a waste of time to go to take your 6-month-old to a stay and play because it's still a baby.
Yeah.
But it's about that, yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, whenever I hear the discourse around the knife crime and how we're going to resolve it, etc., it's always dealing with the issues, as in with the child.
Yeah.
Do you understand? And for me, if you ever want to deal with a problem, you need to look at the root.
Yes.
And the root is always the parent.
Yes.
Now, when I say that, I'm not necessarily blaming the parent. Each of us know what we are and are not doing. And yes, a lot of parents are in situations where they're in work roles where, you know, they feel they're working for the master, so they have no choice but to do what they need to do. But remember, those children didn't ask to be born. They were born and they need to be protected. And when, for me, as I said, there's no perfect parent. But when you are a parent, you try to seek what you can, if you know that's what you need, to the assistance that you need. And I think the work really needs to start simultaneously with the parents and the children. Because let's face facts, the child that died, God rest her soul, his soul, sorry, the parents are victims, but also the child, the perpetrator, is, and his family are also a victim, because nobody gives birth to a child thinking that their child is going to be a murderer in 15 years after giving birth to them. They don't think that. They don't know that. And so the two dynamics going on where neither one of them are getting the help that is needed, either through family, either through community, either through systems like the education system, where, as she said, she's spoken to people, they're not helping. You know, it's almost like...
But and then it's about when she spoke, because I think it has already happened until she now saw. I think there was a question or a point made when she said he came home and he told her, Mom, don't worry, I belong to a family now. Did she ask what family, what he meant? Because she might not even understand what that concept of family was about.
Was she in denial of that?
Or was she in denial of the fact? Because there was a bit of reprieve, because I've seen situations. I worked on a project towards Brixton, and this young guy was dealing on the streets, bringing in money, but the mom was taking it because she really needed it. And when one of the workers, the said, "What you're doing?" She said, "Look, I need." So where's the balance? It's a sad situation we're in, and we're only being real here. So she's taking what her son brings home, not knowing that son, if they pick that child up, what are you going to say? You're going to say, it's not my child, but you're taking what the child brings him, you're taking the money.
It's a systemic issue, because even there was something you said about you've brought the child into the world, is the role to protect, and I agree wholeheartedly, by the way. But then it's also looking at the system, like how much childcare even costs, right? In this country. Talk less of, okay, even if you say let the parents stay at home, okay, where's income coming in, right? It's like a cyclical
home. I'm not saying that, because my belief is that a parent doesn't have to be present every single day, but that child has to know that they have a time where it's you and them. Do you understand? And during that time when it's you and them, you're ministering to them, you're talking to them, you have created a doorway of communication where they're able to tell you what they need to tell you, because we're human beings. I know with my children, they come, oh, mum, I'm just like, listen, give me a break. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm a human being as well. Sometimes you can't draw down on me all the time, but I'm just saying that being present, knowing that child, and I'll give you an example. There was a situation in my daughter's school where they had a lunchtime situation. They couldn't sit and eat where they wanted to eat because other children were doing exams and everybody was just indoors. And things led to things. And my daughter said something. Now, we both knew, my daughter and I knew, when she was telling me, relaying the story, that you were speaking too loud. You should expect to court the teacher's attention. But that teacher had the affront and audacity to tell my child that not even the children that I have, that I love, talk to me in a disrespectful manner. Now, it wasn't that what my daughter said was in a disrespectful manner, but if I hadn't fed into her, if her dad hadn't been feeding into her that she is loved and she is treasured, my daughter wasn't able to respond to her and tell her that, well, actually, I am loved.
I think
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think I agree with that, because sometimes it's not the fact that we don't hear things from our parents. We don't get the hugs. We don't get the love. I love you. And then you can't stand up. You can't even feel that actually I'm loved. I'm blessed. I think that I was on a session recently where a young child said, "Oh, he's seen another child being bullied that on the playground when the child was said, it's because you don't love," and that child just fell on the playground and started crying because it actually confirmed what that child was feeling. So these are the things that, but we need to hear much more about is, how do we get parents to be confident? Because it's enough to say you need to be feeding into your child, but if you were not fed into yourself and you had those issues, what do we do? Stephen?
Yeah,
Stephen.
and I think that's part of what we're talking about is the programs that, like yourself are running, are to be able to talk more, to begin to tell people that, look, there is sufficient help out there. If you know somebody, if I know somebody, and we point them in the right direction to say, listen, there is help out there, there is available, but here's where you need to go. You can go to this person, you can go to that person. I'm here. I think we need to be more vocal about these things in all these forums, and
because people are in denial. People don't even want. They don't even want to think that they need help.
And
that's where the issue is. They don't want to think it.
Recognize, because if you don't tell me that you have a problem, there's no problem to resolve, is there?
There's none.
There's no help to render, because I don't know you have a problem. I don't know you have a problem, and I think the root of the problem is admitting.
Yes.
Just because you admit that you are incapable or you're not able to do a particular thing the way you desire, that doesn't make you a bad parent.
It doesn't make you a bad parent.
I think that makes you a stronger parent.
Yes.
Because taking ownership, and I say that as a male, because I'm listening to all these things that y'all are talking about right now, and unfortunately, I'm not hearing anything about dads.
So I just say
that creates a problem for me.
You see,
and that's why I'm very, very much more now saying, listen,
upset fathers.
Dads, we got to step up on this one, because where was Dad when this 6-year-old was being done? Where was Dad when the 40? All these things and a lot of the stories that we're hearing about, it really, really infuriates me that dads are not taking we're not taking the responsibility, we're not taking ownership, and we should be. And that's why I'm going to push this agenda.
What about where women don't even let the dads take the responsibility?
Well, that's another
point.
That's another problem in of itself.
Because it's like we're displacing fathers.
Because the society has created that to make it convenient.
Has created that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we need to understand within our communities right now, that we need to step up and stop pandering to what society or how society is telling us that we are supposed to parent and bring up our children.
Can I ask a question? Because of course I'm the only person here that's not a parent, and I guess that's why I was a bit like, okay, I don't even know where to start speaking on this, because I do agree that there's a point here that a family unit really matters. And in instances where there are broken families, and you just raised a point there, Pastor Stephen, in the sense of where was the father and even the system isolating fathers or even male figures. Could you expand on that some more, like just to give more context? Because you're all speaking from the context of the very active work you do within communities, and you're involved in communities and different families. But then for people like me or young people who are seeing it from another angle and who agree that, okay, yes, stuff in the like there's a lack of community, lack of family, lack of all of this, but we might not have seen the behind the scene works or how things have progressed through the years in this country. Can you bring some more context so that we have deeper understanding and why we keep circling around the same arguments all the time?
I think one of the biggest things that has created this narrative has been the feminist movement.
Interesting. Ooh, Auntie, you agree? Interesting. I need to hear more. I need to hear more on concept.
Because what that has done has created a narrative where it has felt like, I don't need a man. And the men have said, okay, you don't need me, I'm going to back off. But what we're now seeing is because that is now being pushed out there, and because the society has created that environment where, you know what, okay, you had a baby, we'll pay for this, we'll pay for that, we'll look after this for you. You really
get your house in.
We give you a house, we give you all things that you need to be able to do what you want to do as a single mother. And because I ran a parenting group for fathers. And a lot of the fathers there are in struggle. They are striving
and they want to be involved
and battling to be involved in their children's lives. And I am, I think there was about 14 men in there that are having different struggles. And that's just within Southwark in one room. That are having struggles trying to at least have some kind of relationship with their children. That the society, that the powers that be, that the government, I don't know, parastatals, whatever it is saying, is not giving them that chance for whatever reason. And yes, there's a variety of reasons, but there is always two sides to a coin. But it seems like it is set up to make it harder for the men to be involved with their children for a variety of reasons.
It's about appearances. It's about, and that's why you hardly see men even, because if you say, oh, let's come for an event, I run programs and stuff, you hardly see dads there because they say, I've got to go and look for work because that's what I'm into.
Let's not even talk about the things outside. Let's talk about within the community of which we're involved in, which is the church. When we tell men to come and be involved in things that are going on within the church environment, we're not that forthcoming.
It's true.
Which is, again, another huge tragedy.
But again, I will put that down to parenting. Because if as a parent, you teach your child how to nurture, whether they're male or female.
Come on.
If you teach them how to manage their emotions, whether male or female, then when situations arise, because we know they arise, where two consenting adults have now found themselves with a child, whether they were married or they're not married, then when they break up, for whatever the reason would be, they would not now use the child as a weapon.
That's it.
Do you understand? They will understand the child is the child and we do what we need to do for the child. So another thing I try to do is encourage co-parenting for education purposes, because I believe, irrespective of the agenda of this system to break down families, when teachers see men come into schools
with the mother of their children,
or with the children, they have a different attitude with the child. Do you understand? But you can't expect a traumatized child that has now grown into an adult. And it was Pastor Femi Lazarus that said it. When a child is traumatized, if you want to defeat a child in its adulthood, traumatize them as a child. Do you understand? And when they grow up as an adult, they're an adult chronologically, but they still have the traumatized child in the adult. Do you understand? And that traumatized child cannot raise a child.
And that's the situation we have. Yeah. Because there's the things that have, how you grew up is how you're going to do things.
So that's where you get these expressions of toxic masculinity, because men you're the hunter, you're the this, you go out, you do this. You can't keep sucking in hurt and not have a form of expression that then comes out the wrong way.
I'm glad that you're emphasizing this whole thing of male role models, because I think that is what draws a lot of these young men into gangs. Right? And into grooming, because they're looking for strong male role models or validation, people that look like them. But also, I feel like the conversation of grooming when it comes to young ladies is often neglected as well.
Big one.
Because there are young girls also being groomed, and it is, funnily enough, for the same reason, in terms of a lack of male role models, right? In terms of that feeling of family, in terms of that feeling of protection. Of course, there are different things at play, but we're seeing lack of emotional regulation, like you said, but again, that breakdown of family.
I'm going to throw a spanner in the works. Sorry, Pelumi.
Okay.
You're talking about family. And then within the family, there's grooming.
Yes, there is.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Because you tend to trust them and you leave that child. I've got to go to work, go and stay with uncle, go and stay with the neighbor. And then they start grooming that child. They start abusing that child. And when that child even opens up, you don't even believe the child anyway.
Yeah.
What do you say about that? Is bad. That is.
I think what you just said, the last thing, when the child starts opening up, you don't believe the child, right? And I really want to make sure when we're having this conversation, we don't instill fear in parents, because again, when we were emphasizing that thing of community, we still need community. And part of building trust in community is believing what people say. And it also means that creating an environment where vulnerability and things can be shared. So I think, again, going back to the relationship between the parent and the child, parents listening to understand first and investigate without jumping at the child saying, I don't believe you.
But do you know why they jump at the child?
Why?
Because it's a form of defense. When a child is telling you that if I've gone to uncle so-and-so, I've gone to uncle so-and-so, and this is what he or auntie so-and-so, and this is what they've done to me. What are you saying indirectly that
you're the failure.
Me there?
Yeah.
And that's why you failed me. That's why this is happening. And that's why if you have situations where the parent's not listening, because they
Defense mode.
Defense mode, victim mode. Oh, but I could have left you on the street, but I sent you here so I could go.
But I did this. Are you ungrateful? Are you? Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying? It's because, and it's all part of emotion. It's emotion. If there's no emotional intelligence,
That's it.
developed in a child, do you understand? I always say, if you watch siblings the way they behave with each other, that's exactly the same way they behave with others outside. It's not any different because they don't know any different.
But there I raise, so you say emotional intelligence in children, but also, please, I honor my elders. I have to do this. But then in terms of like, there's a lot of emotional immaturity in parents. Right? There's a powerful child
inside the adult.
And there's a powerful book that I've read, Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents, right? And it's what you're saying in terms of the traumatized child, the stunted child coming up, and then defense mode. We've mentioned guilt tripping a lot. So again, I'm sorry, Auntie, that I'm now throwing questions back. As parents, as practitioners in the community that deal with parents a lot, how do you work around the whole thing of not going on a guilt trip with your child to ensure they keep opening up? Because it's an interesting one.
It's an interesting one. It's a journey, and it's still a journey we're still on. Absolutely. It's about, like I said, you start from the place of trust and letting the parent know that nobody's judging you. Because once they know that they're not being judged, it's easy for them to start opening up and say, but it's a process. It's not going to happen overnight. Absolutely. And that's why we're trying to tell the powers that be, give us time. Nothing is going, there's no quick fix to this, to say, you have an issue with your child in gangs, or we want a social service is going to take charge of, or except you go on this social services or parenting program and you do a 6-week or 10-week and you're going to be fine. It's not going to happen like that. So it's about, let's start that conversation. Let's get parents to open up. Let's start building relationships. Let's do the fun things. Let's not make it so rigid that whereby parents have to feel that they're being judged by having to go on a program, or they're being judged by having to report a case. It's all about that.
Sorry, can I go back to something? When we were talking about the feminist movement, where Pastor Stephen was talking, now I think it was World War I or World War II, where all the men went to war.
Yeah.
Do you understand? Yep. And all the women that existed then were trying to do all the roles of the men in order to keep the country going. Yep. And they did a phenomenal job. They did a phenomenal job. But then what happened when the men came back? It's like, oh yeah, good to be back. Yeah. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so that movement was created. Yep. And there was nothing wrong with the creation, the original creation of that movement. Yes. But as is everything, you have the original and you have the extreme. Do you understand? Now, the extreme isn't, you know, all women are stronger than men, blah, blah. No, there needs to be a balance with everything. Environmental issues, they're telling you, because there's no balance on the earth, that's why we're having all these fires and things in Los Angeles and whatever. In humanity, when there's no balance, what do you think happens? It's going to affect the children. And when you are environments, as far as I'm concerned, no girl child or no male child should grow up without the opposing figure present. Because after a certain period, the girl needs the father and the boy needs the mother. I've heard the saying that a boy's first love is always his mum. Do you understand what I'm saying? But if his mum is not around, because father now decides, because he's not happy with mum, he's going to not let her see, or vice versa. We're not sitting down thinking of that impact. And the system also knows that they're not thinking of that impact because they keep targeting the children. Children didn't bring themselves into the world and they don't raise themselves. They need the parent if they've got good parents.
And I just wanted to just jump on that thing of what you said. I love how you said there needs to be balance, right? Because what came to mind is the 5 stages of child development, right? And just some psychology in terms of the need of both the father and the mother. So even from what Pastor Stephen has said in terms of men being more active in their children's life, that balance of active parents, and even with both parents being in the home, a parent can be passive, right? So it's a thing of, what does it look like for people, parents to be actively involved in the child's life, and the need for one voice, just balance. If one person is more authoritarian, one person needs to bring that balance, etc. Again, I'm not a parent. I'm just asking the question.
Okay, I think because of time as well, I just need to we're going to wrap up. So I'm going to ask you for your last thoughts or final thoughts on this. But I just want to say this because sometimes the balance is also about, in a situation where the father's not there, it might be for reasons that were not even planned. Somebody might even pass away. But it's about having somebody. It might be
male figures.
It might be anybody, but it's about actively, like you said, looking for that. And that's what the role of mom has to be as well, to do that, or the role of dad, to make sure there is that balance as well. So I'm just going to ask you, because we started off with it, but if we can go on forever. But can we have any final thoughts from Eliyo, just very quickly to round up this?
My final thought, if I could implore all parents, if you have in terms of involvement with fathers, I strongly believe if that father is not threatening the life of a child, allow that man to be present in that child's life to bring some balance.
Okay. Regardless of where that is. Thank you so much. Pelumi, back you.
I think we need to start being community, not just in name, but in deed.
Yes.
And that means removing judgment and shame. So healthy community is one where there's vulnerability, where there's reciprocity, and where there's trust and fun, right? Fun is very essential.
Fun is
Fun is essential. That's how we bond, etc. But we need to be community beyond the surface level.
I really like that. Really like that. Stephen?
And mine will simply be for us as dads, as men, to step up and take charge as we ought to in every capacity, and not to believe the lies, the deception, the negatrons, statements out there that we don't matter. Father, you matter.
So we've heard it today. We started off with the topic of grooming, but as you've heard, grooming takes on different facets that can impact on lives of our children. So we've got so much of work to do as parents, as a community, as a system. So watch this space, and we're hoping that we can do it because it can be done.
Absolutely.
Thank you for watching
Thank you.
Margaret's podcast today.